About 3.5 hours in, the experience finally started to materialize. I can't tell you how it came on because when these psychedelics do, it's often in a very overwhelming way. Especially looking back at it, it's kind of like 1 second you're like, yeah, I feel pretty much normal, maybe a little weird, to like, holy fuck, the ramp is steep. Hello to all of you gorgeous people watching this video this fine, whatever day this is posted. I hope you're all having a tremendously fantastic day. And today I'm going to be talking to you about a compound that I have pretty much omitted from the channel. I've spoken about it a few times, and due to the significance and just the sheer historic value of this substance, it's shocking that I don't have more content on it. The reason why not a lot of people, even know what mescaline is. People learn about LSD and then magic mushrooms and then even DMT before they hear about mescaline. I mean, just in the average instance. And that is largely because mescaline is rather difficult to come by. I mean, it does grow in nature. It can be found in the peyote, the Peruvian torch, and the San Pedro cactus, as well as in some beans. But it is pretty difficult to have a full-blown experience on, especially these days. I mean, like, the Mexican natives have been using peyote for religious reasons as like their sacrament for over 500 years. However, once white man discovered it back in the 1800s and they started using it, I feel like there was a period where they just fleshed all of the potent cactus out, and now when people are buying it online, they're really just getting bottom of the barrel stuff that doesn't have the right potency, and people just probably aren't preparing it properly. What I've found is a lot of the time the experience they have is very underwhelming. They're not really seeing what mescaline has to offer. To do this, you have to have a synthesized or extracted mescaline, either sulfate or hydrochloride, the hydrochloride being a little bit more powerful due to it having, less or more molecular weight. And these compounds are also very rare to find, and when you do find them, they're often extremely expensive. An average price would be maybe something like $80 for an amount of mescaline hydrochloride that'll give you maybe 2 experiences at best. So given the high price point, it is not an attractive compound for dealers to sell, because you could comparatively take a tab of LSD that you can buy for $5 to $10 depending on where you live and have potentially a more powerful experience. So there are not a lot of people out there who have experiences with this compound, which is a shame, because mescaline was, I believe, the first psychedelic to be really synthesized, and it is the compound that launched Alexander Shulgin's, true interest in psychedelics. I mean, a lot of the stuff that he developed or discovered was based on the phenethylamine molecule, like the 2CB is probably the most well-known drug that he discovered, and MDMA is something that he popularized. These are based on phenethylamines, MDMA being also an amphetamine structure. Now, that all being said, mescaline is nothing like 2CB. I mean, in the past, I've said it's similar, and there are similarities, probably just because they're both phenethylamines. However, when it comes to, I think, just the raw psychedelic power for personal growth and even stunning visual symmetry, mescaline, hands down, is the winner. Now, for those of you who are interested in psychedelic literature, mescaline is also the compound that is spoke about in The Doors to Perception, written by Aldous Huxley, and that was the compound which got him also interested in psychedelic. Mescaline seems to be a lot of people's firsts from back in the day. These days, things have changed due to reasons I've already explained, and a lot of people start off with shrooms or LSD, and mescaline just gets no recognition whatsoever. So I am here to finally give this wonderful substance, this life-changing compound, some sort of a spotlight. Because I did not take a cactus-level dose. I didn't take, the threshold experience by drinking some green sludge. Oh, no. I had the most potent mescaline hydrochloride at a dose of about, I think it was 420 milligrams. Which, if you look at the dose scale here, is nearing that is a high dose. Yeah, I was in the high dose range, baby. And that was a thing. That was a damn thing. So let's, without further ado, let's dive headfirst into my mescaline experience. Now, before we do get into this video, I want to make it clear that this is an experience from my own past, and I'm not making these videos to influence anybody to take anything. I need you guys to know that just because an experience happened a certain way for me, it does not mean that you are going to have a similar experience. These compounds are very unique in the way that they affect everybody in very different ways. It's more so than dose, dependent on the current mindset that you are in. That all being said, I don't want anyone to watch this video and think that taking mescaline is a good idea. I mean, first of all, you're gonna have a very difficult time finding the shit. And second of all, yeah, it could be very different, almost terrifying, and if you're not ready for these experiences, you could find yourself in a world of trouble. You could really regret taking it. So I want to make it clear that I do not recommend that anybody follows in my footsteps. I am simply sharing how this experience was for me, and I want you guys to really keep that at the forefront of your mind. Thank you. Now, this took place during my last birthday, so this was actually one of my most recent psychedelic endeavors, meaning it's quite fresh in my mind. But anyway, let's jump right into the story. So it was my birthday, and taking mescaline was actually a complete surprise to me. You see, my partner wanted to surprise me, so we had a babysitter, and I thought we were just going out for dinner. So we went out to this beautiful restaurant, had some fantastically delicious, overpriced meal, and then she surprised me by saying, actually, we have a hotel for the evening, and actually, I managed to find your mescaline. I thought we could go back to the hotel after dinner and have an experience. And I was like, fuck yeah, all right, I'm down, let's do it. So, went back to the hotel. Want to preface this by saying hotels are definitely not the best places to have mind-bending interdimensional experiences just because of the premise of being in a hotel in the middle of like a city. Like, you want to be out in the woods in nature, not where you can hear sirens. More on the sirens coming soon. But whatever, this is what we had. We worked with what we had. This is when I used to drink. I no longer drink alcohol thanks to the mescaline experience. Thank you, Psychedelics, for getting me off alcohol again. I did have approximately 4 to 5 alcoholic beverages throughout the evening, which is a ton more than I would normally drink. So I wasn't even going into this experience sober, unfortunately. Luckily, mescaline is a hell of a thing, and it took 3 to 4 hours to fully conceptualize the experience. So by the time it came on, I don't believe I was feeling the alcohol anymore, but I was definitely feeling in my gut like, shit, why did I poison my body? And it's interesting, I got to take psychedelics to realize that alcohol really is a poison. It's not good for me. It fucks my skin up, man. Anyway, I'm going way off course. Let's stay on target, Adam. Explain the mescaline experience. You can do this. Keep the ADHD in check just for the video and get this out there. All right, back on track. So, I remember both of us were not having the strongest of effects. We were laying in the bed, just kind of tossing and turning, feeling nothing but overwhelming nausea. I believe she tried to make herself throw up at one point. It did not work. Neither of us did vomit, but we were definitely feeling like, well, I was feeling like I didn't really want to move. I just wanted to lay perfectly still until it passed. So, once you get 2 hours after consuming like a high dose of a compound, especially if you're me and you're used to things coming on quickly, you start to mentally render the experience as a dud. So I was like, I guess that's all that this stuff has to offer. It's just, it was having some, slight psychedelic vibrance was going on. I felt like there was some faint visuals, maybe a little bit of drifting, but nothing too, all-encompassing. Like, I was still able to keep my usual mental faculties in check. Like, I could walk, I could speak. After the alcohol wore off, of course, I was able to move around somewhat pretty much sober. And I remember she was like, yeah, I don't want to do this again. This sucks. I just feel really fucking uncomfortable. And me too. I was like, yeah, I guess that's what it is. Let's just lay down and maybe we can just fall asleep and wake up the next morning and it is what it is. Thankfully, we were both dead wrong. About 3.5 hours in, the experience finally started to materialize. I can't tell you how it came on because when these psychedelics do, it's often in a very overwhelming way. Especially looking back at it, it's kind of like 1 second you're like, yeah, I feel pretty much normal, maybe a little weird, to like, holy fuck am I feeling right now? It's just like this, woof, the ramp is steep. I do remember that on this high dose, everything started to look like it was made out of overwhelming patterns of light. I don't know how to describe this, but the symmetry and everything just became unbelievably beautiful. And your perception to small particles of light is exponentially exaggerated. Like if you're in the dark and you can see maybe like a little blinking smoke detector light, these auras are shooting off of it and it kind of like trails away and sputters. It is really difficult to explain, but it almost looks as though everything in your visual field is grid-like. It starts looking like reality is made out of very, very faint threads, and you can kind of see like the electricity shooting up and down these threads going like back and forth. That's creating like your vision, and it's like you can see the hologram as it's being formed in front of you, especially if you're in the dark and you've got little little particles of light to make up your field. You can just see it going like back and forth, kind of like a highway of lights. It's going. It's fucking stunning, man. It is insane to look at. So you can quite easily just get lost looking around and going like, wow, this is kind of like an inside, I mean, as if we don't already have an inside view into how we see things, but like an inside view as to how your brain is converting light into sight. These experiences are quite breathtaking because it's not, you feel like you're privileged to witnessing or experiencing reality in a way that not only not many people ever get to see, but that is so fundamentally rare and difficult to really even explain or form into words that, like, if a smarter person saw it, they could probably extrapolate so much more data as to the origins of just life than you are able to foresee with your limited capacity brain. At least that's how I feel. So it's like you feel like you're witnessing something extraordinary, which of course is packed full of a strong punch of euphoria that just fills your being. The nausea converts into feeling blissful. Or that could just be an effect of the drug on your dopamine serotonin syndrome. Who the fuck knows? Because not only are you seeing things that you could never dream of seeing normally, but everything is heightened, like sounds. Your brain starts to convert sounds into sight. You get that synesthesia effect where it's like you hear something in the distance, but you can almost see the sound waves shooting through the air. You don't just see like in the movies when you see sound waves as like these circles that just get bigger and bigger as they come at you. It's almost like each sound has its own flavor, its own character of manifestation that I am going to feel miserably explaining, so I'll just leave it at that. So I'm having like a full-blown intense psychedelic experience that just came on from nausea to like 100,000 miles per hour in a snap. And I remember turning and looking at my partner, and she's just like, I could tell that she's fucking in it too. And at this point, language ceases to be an important communication factor as we just kind of touched our heads and transported into this parallel dimension where it almost felt as though we were accessing a sixth sense. It's not like you're communicating in your mind in the sense of you have a thought and then like you can hear their thoughts, which I've had on things like LSD where you can actually hear people's thoughts. It wasn't like that. This was like accessing a new form of communication, kind of like similar to the electric threads. It almost felt musical in its essence. Like, you know that scene in Interstellar where he's in the fourth or is it fifth dimension? I don't know. And he's like, he sees the threads and he's like doing this. It was kind of like that. Like we were communicating via these very thin fabric, almost very whimsical, like flimsy feeling particles that we were accessing in some kind of a joint conscious arena that we only needed to kind of like, you know, touch and like link together to have a joint experience with. And we're just traveling through this fourth or fifth dimensional world. And I couldn't tell you what exactly we were communicating. I mean, for all you guys know, all intents and purposes, this was just fully, you know, in my own mind. How do I know she shared the experience even though she said she did? And that's the next thing that happens on these intense psychedelic experiences. If you're doing them with another person that you have, you know, at least some form of connection with, you have what's called a shared psychedelic adventure, where you both can sometimes have the exact same trip at the exact same time, almost to the point where it's like you realize, wow, I am this person. And then when you realize you are the person you're with, it's very easy to take the next step and then jump into thinking, oh, I must be everybody. And at that point, you feel like you're nothing but the energy that creates life. And it does make you realize just how insanely connected we are to everyone. I mean, we are all made of the same matter, like essentially, if you want to go down that often traveled road, but it goes beyond that. It goes more into the levels of a shared soul. I don't know how to describe it, but it is mesmerizing. It's incredible. I remember I got up at this point and I walked down the stairs. This is a strange hotel. It actually had stairs down to like a little lounge area. It sounds like extravagant, but it really wasn't. And I was looking at myself in the mirror. And on things like LSD, my face can tend to like morph and shift. And a lot of people say never look in the mirror, but I say always look in the mirror, because what you're going to see is going to change you. I mean, literally at that moment, your reflection is changing. So I remember I was looking at myself, and I started to have like a conversation out loud. Maybe it wasn't out loud, who knows, with myself. Because as I was looking in the mirror, I was watching my face morph into all kinds of crazy things. It was almost to the extent where it looked like I was seeing other incarnations of myself. And I've had this experience before. It's very fascinating, but it's almost like if you let your eyes fade out, you can see yourself turning into all these different things. But when you really focus in, you can become yourself again. But it's like an alien version of myself. And I remember I distinctly resembled, I don't know if it was the weird sweater I was wearing, but I looked like Spock from Star Trek. I looked like a fucking elf. Now, I believe I look like an elf in everyday life, so maybe that was just becoming extremely exaggerated. I remember smiling at myself and just thinking, yep, you're a fucking alien. This is proof. You are an alien. And then I was like, wait a second. You really are a space traveler. I mean, you're on a rock that's flying through outer space, circling a flaming ball called a sun. So yeah, you actually are from outer space. And I was like, whoa, it all makes perfect fucking sense. Now, this whole experience isn't rainbows and butterflies. I went upstairs from there, and I was laying down, and I'm not quite sure what I was experiencing at this point, but I did hear a siren going off in the distance. And for whatever reason, this siren started to freak me out. I started to experience pure ego death. And ego death is interesting, because before hearing the siren and before starting to think about like scared things, like the siren triggered me to come back into my body and be like, oh my God, is my physical body okay? Why do I feel so weird? How do I know that I'm going to come back from this? How do I know that I'm going to become myself again? Because during this experience, you're slowly losing your connection to your personality, also known as ego death. You no longer even sometimes know your name. And it's like as your memories of fundamental pieces of who you are start to dissolve, your separation to your environment dissolves with it. You melt into the background. And it's terrifying, because you feel like you're actually leaving, as if you're getting abducted in a spacecraft kind of thing. Like you are actually leaving this dimension of existence. And since you are struggling to remember who you are or even what a human is, it's terrifying, because there's absolutely no proof that you are going to come back. And it's strange, because you'd think if you're forgetting, then okay, well, you've already forgotten. You should just be able to let go. But it's like, that there's something that you want to hold on to, or at least this is what happens when you're not 100% comfortable letting go. You start latching to the feelings of fear. And when you're having this dissolving experience, you really have to align with love. Like you got to focus on right here and feel that love, and just have faith is the word I'm looking for, that you are going to be safe and you're going to come back, because whatever emotion you focus on is going to be deployed in a very, very intense, overwhelming way. So since I focused on the fear of not coming back, that fear just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was all encompassing, and I got terrified. Luckily, since I was with my partner, I just asked her to hold my hand, and she held my hand, and I just closed my eyes, and I just focused on my meditative breathing to make it through the fear. This is when some people would take a trip killer, but it's really best not to. Only take those in emergencies. If you can just kind of melt into the experience, then you can be okay. So I first discovered, like I said out loud, I know what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of forgetting. I'm afraid of forgetting who I am. I'm afraid that I'm not going to remember, and I'm never going to come back and be me. I think I just got this feeling that it was okay. You don't have any guarantee that you are going to come back, but I just felt like, you know what? You kind of asked for this, man. Just breathe through it, and you'll be fine. And it was probably just from having that, like, holding my partner's hand and feeling like there was someone there for me. I mean, if I didn't have that, I don't know what I would have done, really. Like, I needed that at this point, because I wasn't ready to face that enigma alone. And I breathed through this, and I couldn't really tell you what happened at this point, probably because it was ego death. And it's really hard to form memories when you don't have a form to form them with, or a perceived form. So I had that experience, and that was freaky. And I do remember the experience of coming back, and it was yeah, it was beautiful. Now, after all of this, and communicating in a different dimension and seeing my face morph and have an ego death, the experience finally started to wane, started to wear off. Mescaline is very long lasting. I believe like the peak effects are done after around 5 hours, but the actual experience can linger for like 8 to 12. Once it started to wear down and we still had the lingering visuals, we didn't want to be in the hotel, because one of the scary things that happened is after the ego death, I started having these these thoughts that I was being watched. Like there was eyes on me at that time. And it was a really eerie feeling. And I'm sure it was just attached to being in a hotel. I just felt like there was recording devices in the hotel. Like I kind of went into a very paranoid state. This part of the trip is not so pretty. And that was probably all triggered from that alarm, which triggered my fear. Because once you hear like sirens, we are like programmed to have like an emergency response to that. So I realized I don't want to have a trip when there's fucking sirens around. It's important for me to note this, that sometimes that's all it takes to launch you from like a blissful experience into an absolutely terrifying one. Because on these psychedelics, you are so suggestible. From there, like I really didn't snap out of it. Those fears became even more exaggerated, and I almost felt like I was some kind of an alien experiment. And I was being judged and watched by like these alien overlords, and like I was having some real freaky fucking thoughts. I don't know if any of them have any basis in reality or not, but I just knew that I wanted to leave the hotel. So we got a cab. We got out of the hotel. At that point, I got to like see how spectacular nature looked. And if I was comparing this compound to something like LSD, I would say that the actual experience is very similar to LSD, but visually speaking, well, it's similar. Like it has that same electric vibe. It's visually much more gorgeous. Symmetrically speaking, like say when you're looking out into trees or mountains, like everything just looks, it's so hard to explain the symmetry, but it's like the symmetry is enhanced. It looks perfect. It's fucking mesmerizing. I don't know how else to describe it. The mescaline just had this certain specialness to it that you don't get on these other compounds, that you just have to experience it to truly grasp what I'm talking about. The mescaline's in a league of its own. I mean, mescaline really is some fucking crazy shit, man. Because like I said, after this experience, I realized I didn't want to drink alcohol anymore. And I was starting to like have a drink or two a night again because of, just stresses and stuff. And I've had this experience many times in life where I kick alcohol, then I pick it up again, then I kick it. And hopefully this psychedelic, which is known to help with addiction, is going to help me kick this one for good, because I don't want to drink. It's not my cup of tea, man. But yeah, what are we at? Shit, we're at about 29 minutes. We should wrap this thing up. Yeah, I'm sure I could keep going, and there's even more to this experience, but I think we're going to wrap things up there. I've been blabbling on long enough. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you leave it with a big thumbs up. Hit that like button. Also, if you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, because I do release content maybe once a year. You want to make sure you catch those once a year releases. I mean, all jokes aside, I've been pretty slow with the content lately, and that's just because I've been going through my own metamorphosis of healing, as I've explained, and I don't want to push myself to make videos when I'm just not in that headspace. I want this to come naturally, and I want the videos to be impactful. Like I want to have them injected with the proper passion needed to share experiences that are truly going to help people in their own journeys, or just at least be fucking entertaining. Like at least let's go for that. And I'm not going to be any of those things if I'm forcing myself to make content. So like on one level, I want to apologize for the slow content, but on the other level, I want to just, make it clear that I'm doing my best. And the amount of content released is going to increase with time as I become more and more connected to the source of me, which is happening. So yeah, these are some interesting times we're living in. I hope you guys are all able to see the bigger picture as bright and full of eternal beauty. And I realize now, as the sun's peering in the window, the brightness might have been off the charts. Also like to give a big shout out to everyone who's supporting us on Patreon right now, especially everyone in this box right here. If I missed your name, send me a message on Patreon. You guys are my top supporters. You guys keep the channel alive. If you appreciate what I do, check out our Patreon. It's because of you guys that I can even make this content. So huge thank you to everyone who's supporting us on Patreon. Till next time, take care, guys, and I will see you all in the next video. Cheers, everybody.